So thanks, Steve, for joining us. Steve Saunders, former Grimsby Town striker. Welcome to the Three Fish on the Shirt podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me, Dave.
No, we welcome. And I've just noted that there's very few people that have got links to Grimsby, Warrington, Grimsby Town, and the town of Warrington. So it's nice to nice to catch up with you again after all these years. We're just reminiscing that it's what 30 odd years now before you were since you were at Grimsby.
Oh yeah, at least 30, 35 probably now, I think.
Yeah, time flies. So you kicked off your football career at school in Warrington, and you started off getting noticed by Warrington Town. So how did that come about? What was that? What sort of age
Well,
was that at?
it was about when I was about 12, 13. I ended up playing for a team called Rope and Anchor. This was after I'd left Rylands FC, and then Warrington Town obviously was the next step up, and started playing for Warrington Town. Yeah, when I was about 13, 14,
Yeah.
right through up until 15, 14, 15. Yeah.
And for people who don't know, Warrington, Rylands is quite a big deal in Warrington as well, isn't it?
It is now, yes. I actually played for Rylands when I finished my career as well.
Yeah.
For 5 or 6 seasons. Yeah, so
I used to live in
moved on now.
I used to live in Great Sankey, so it's not far from where they were. So
no, well, that's where I used to live in Great Sankey as well.
yeah,
So
yeah, nice one.
yeah.
So you got your first professional chance at Bolton. Is that right? Is that where you started?
Yeah, I was scouted playing obviously Saturday football for a local team, Rope and Anchor, and at that time, in those days, you couldn't really sign for a club until you was 14 years of age.
Right.
And we got a lot of people knocking on doors and asking, could I sign for this club, could I sign for that club? But my parents, they were quite keen for me to do well in my school education, do you know what I mean? And
yeah.
I had the threat of, if I didn't do well in my O-levels and that I'd have to stay on. I couldn't take up an apprenticeship that I was offered at Bolton Wanderers, you see. So it gave me the incentive to do reasonably well. And I took up the apprenticeship at Bolton at the age of 16.
Yeah, that's quite a big club to go to as well. Bolton with lots of history.
Yeah, it was at the time. I mean, they had some great players playing for them as well. The sort of heroes of mine, you know what I mean? That watch them on Match of the Day regular. And Jim McDonough, Paul Jones, Alan Gowling, Len Cancello, Peter Reid, Tony Henry. I mean, some great players, really. Brian Kidd was there at the time as well. So these were players that I watched mainly on TV as a young kid and looked up to. Do you know what I mean? And then the next thing, I'm sort of in the changing rooms with them.
Yeah, wow.
Albeit for the first 2 years, I was an apprentice and sort of look after the pros at that time. Do you know what I mean? And one of the players that I looked after, kit-wise and boots and everything, was Peter Reid.
Wow. He went on to have an illustrious career in playing and management.
He has, yeah. And a great bloke, really. Do you know what I mean? He was a person that I really liked as a player, but off the field, he was a gentleman as well, do you know, Peter. So
he was good to you, even though he was an apprentice doing his boots. He still looked after you, did he?
Yeah, he did. He was great. I mean, he gave us lots of tips and looked after us as a young kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Give us a bit of guidance on what we should be doing when I'm training. Although he wasn't always doing it himself, I don't think at the time.
Yeah, let's do as I say, not as I do. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've stories about Peter Reid, but probably not for the podcast, really.
So you only managed 3 appearances for Bolton because you got quite a nasty injury, I understand.
Yeah, initially I should have made my debut at 16. I went to Crystal Palace, and the manager was sort of saying I'd probably be playing because there was an injury to, I think, Jeff Chandler. So I travelled down, but I didn't actually end up making my debut. I think Jeff passed a fitness test the next day, and he ended up playing himself.
Yeah.
So I didn't get on the pitch. So I obviously kept going, playing in the Central League, playing for the reserves at Bolton, and eventually, I mean, during that period, like you say, I had a lot of injuries. I had a double hernia operation, then I broke my foot, and then eventually John McGovern became manager, and he gave me my debut at 18.
Another illustrious player, European Cup winner, double European Cup winner, John McGovern.
Yeah, and another gentleman, a great manager, I thought at the time, but there was things going on in the background that the players knew about, but I don't know if he knew about himself. Do you know what I mean? So he was sort of ousted by backroom staff and players, really, the older players, because he was more after bringing in a youth policy.
Yeah.
Others didn't. Well, it meant that others would be missing out and losing their roles, really. So.
And
there was other people working behind the scenes to get rid of him, I think.
Yeah.
Which was a shame because he was a great bloke.
Yeah, and you know, there's one thing in football, it's constantly changing, whether it's behind the scenes forces or performances or whatever. You know, the clubs stay the same and they gradually change, don't they?
Exactly, yeah. And like you say, I only played 3 games. It was my third game. It was away at Gillingham. I made my debut against Wimbledon. I think the second game was Bradford City away, and then played at Gillingham in a night game. And I went to clear a ball, and somebody put the foot above the ball, and I kicked the studs out to him. I could feel the crack. You know what I mean?
I can feel the crack just hearing you talk about it.
Yeah, and I still remember thinking I need to play on because if I lose my place now, do you know what I mean? And I stayed on the pitch. I was in agony, and exactly the same thing happened in the second half.
Oh,
and at that point, I was stretched off. I think I spent the night over in Gillingham actually.
Yeah.
And came back the next day because it was that painful. I ended up in Gillingham Hospital. So
yeah.
So yeah, and that
short-lived career at Bolton then.
Yeah, well, I think I was there for another season, and then obviously managers change again. Do you know what I mean? I think Charlie Wright came in then.
Yeah.
He was always backroom staff at the club, but he was he was one who was sort of after the role of John McGovern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The world's like that in all parties. I think it's one of the things you don't see as a fan, isn't it? Is that the football clubs and changing rooms and workplaces like anywhere else in some level.
Yeah, and some of the things that go on probably not repeatable again on a podcast, but I mean, there's probably things you could write in a book. But it's not nice, some of the things, you know what I mean? Some of the things I've seen in my career behind the scenes, and it's happened to myself, really, you know what I mean? They're not good for the game, really, I don't think. And have probably led to me leaving clubs rather than sticking it out, you know what I mean?
So you then moved on to Crewe, where you were for a year between 85 and 86.
Yeah.
So how was your time at Crewe?
I mean, I enjoyed it at Crewe, really. I mean, Dario obviously wanted a team, and he was a young coach bringing all these new methods in. Not always most enjoyable training sessions, but he seemed to get things done, do you know what I mean? And I think I played 20 odd games for Crewe that season.
Yeah.
And I did okay, but Dario, he wanted to make me into a winger, and I'd never seen myself as a winger, and I didn't enjoy it, really.
Yeah.
I see myself more as a forward or more of a central role. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I stuck it out, but I think he knew I wasn't enjoying it. And obviously, it came to the end of the season, and I was released from Crewe. So,
Mm. And then
yeah.
it was there you went to Preston, but you didn't actually play for Preston.
Well, I spent the pre-season at a couple of clubs that were interested.
Yeah.
I went to Stockport County when I was at Hertford was manager, and then I went to Cambridge for a few games, and then I got a call from Preston North End, and it was one of my old coaches from Bolton, actually, Walter Joyce.
Is that Warren Joyce's dad?
Warren's dad, yeah,
Yeah.
Walter, who again was a great bloke, Walter. You know what I mean? Someone I looked up to again in the game.
Yeah.
And he was a great coach. And he said that they wanted to offer me a contract. You know what I mean? So it was
Excellent.
closer to home.
Yeah.
For me, and I decided then, to sign for Preston.
So from my sort of research, you didn't play for Wrexham, Preston, beg your pardon, at all in the league or cup because of an ankle injury. Is that right?
Yeah, it was one of those seasons really. They had the AstroTurf at Preston. It was probably one of the only ones at the time, and it was like concrete.
Yeah.
Because I was quite a quick player, they used to make us wear these sponsored boots, and they were had quite high studs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And as soon as you slam the brakes on,
yeah,
you just were automatically going over on the ankle all the time.
Your top half still moving, and your bottom half stops immediately.
The foot stops, and I had three times I did it in a season, and every time I got fit, and the manager would say, "You're making your debut. You're playing this. Here's the tickets. You know what I mean? Tell your family you can. You know what I mean?" And I'd get injured at the Friday before I did again. You know what I mean? So it was a good season. I enjoyed the players and playing in the Central League when I was there. Played with some good players again. Nigel Jensen, who went on to Forest. Some players. I mean, Frank Worthington was at Preston. Sam Allardyce when I was there.
Yeah. They've both played for Bolton as well, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, it was a place that seemed to attract ex-Bolton players, really.
Yeah. People staying in the northwest, maybe.
Probably, yes, yeah. There's quite a few who left from Bolton, went to play for Preston later in their careers.
And then, and then, so you're actually playing in the Central League, and it's reported that Don O'Riordan spots you playing and is quite impressed.
Yeah, I didn't know nothing about it at the time. It was only later when Don said to me how it all came about. He said I'd played in a reserve game at Blundell Park, and his words were, "You ripped us apart." He said, and I just remembered when at the end of the season that when you were looking through the transfer lists and things, my name came up.
Yeah.
And then I remember getting a call from Don. I think it was Don himself, actually.
Yeah, Don I think was the assistant manager at the time. He was running the reserves and helping coach the first team and playing as well, by the way.
That's right, yeah. And he said he invited me down. He said, "Come down." I did have one or two other clubs that I was, but he was quite convincing, Don, you know what I mean? So
yeah, genial Irishman.
I came down. Yes, you could say that. And I obviously did the 3 months trial that I was on, and then they decided to sign me. Bobby Roberts. Yeah. So yeah.
What was Bobby Roberts like as a manager? He's not one of the ones that probably linked with the fans particularly well. I don't know. I don't mean in a bad way. Just didn't. I didn't get the connection with him like others.
Yeah, he was a very quiet person, really.
Yeah.
He very rarely raised his voice in the changing rooms. I think only once or twice did I really hear him raise his voice. And again, as a manager, I quite liked him. I thought he was quite genuine and really wanted to do well for the club. It was just probably we all let him down that season. Do you know what I mean? When it comes to the end of the season, especially the last game.
Yeah. It was a tough old season. I mean, it started reasonably well. Sort of went
Yeah,
a bit wrong in sort of December, January time, and for some reason, and I don't know if it's something about us as a club, we seem to struggle in that period of the year, whatever season it is. And
yeah,
then it kind of petered out into a relegation at the end, didn't it?
it did. Yeah, and it always sticks in my memory the last game. And well, it become a bit of a fiasco in the end. I think
Yeah,
with the penalty taking. I mean, I remember getting the penalty, and all I'm thinking we're gonna win the game now. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Uh, but I think Jobbers was supposed to take the pen,
yeah,
and as a young lad, it was just too much pressure for him, and he declined. And then Northie stepped up, and I stepped up, and I was saying to Don, I thought Don should have took it really. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. 'Cause he was
Being
a decent penalty taker as well, wasn't
yeah, with the experience he had as well, probably. But and I knowing from training North, he always struggled kicking a. He could finish for England sometimes, you know
he?
what I
Yeah,
mean. But kicking a dead ball, he always seemed to catch the floor before the ball, and
yeah,
that's exactly what he did when he took the pen. I think actually the keeper was down on the floor before he actually ball got to him, really.
yeah.
So
So, a shame
but,
for the first season, but you had a good run in the team, and you got a few goals. Um, but like I say, ultimately it was an unsuccessful season. Did you, despite what happened, did you enjoy that season? Did you enjoy being at Grimsby?
yeah, I mean, I absolutely love the club. You know what I mean? I love the atmosphere at the club. The fans are fantastic. I mean, when Alan Buckley took over, unfortunately, it, it was a period where I was out of contract.
Yeah,
And in those days, you had to negotiate your own contracts,
yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah,
And knowing the players that I was playing with, most of them were on double the wage I was on. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
I'd signed more or less under a trialist contract.
yeah,
So I was more holding out just to be on a more equal wage.
yeah,
And I didn't. I missed the first 5 games of the season training on my own at home.
yeah,
Uh, but fortunately for me, it was a shocking start for the club.
mm,
In the end, he was on the phone to me, Alan Buckley, asking me to come back.
yeah. I think
Uh,
that season. I mean, we'd finished. Obviously went down. I think we had about 6 or 7 players when he came in,
mm,
and you were one of that number. And he signed a number of non-league players who, as it happens now, are club legends. Um, but there was a lot
yeah,
of a lot of Money Town fans saying, "Oh, there's only one way we go in signing non-league players," and I'm counting them with that number, the likes John Cockrell, um, Keith
yeah,
Alexander, people like that
yeah,
who went on to do really well for Town. So yeah, but it was a
yeah.
bad
And
start.
I think I mean people don't appreciate how many good players there are playing at that conference level. Do you know what I mean? That
Mm,
could all be footballers.
mm,
And I think Alan Buckley tapped into that and knew the background of it all, didn't he? Because he'd been managing there for a while. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? So
I think it's quite a glib
uh,
thing to say, but he knew good footballers, didn't he? And he knew if he got good footballers in the right sort of setting, he could make it happen.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think with the players that was there at the club, like Maka and John McDermott, Aggie, and
yeah,
you know, you had a basis of a good youth as well of players,
yeah,
coming through, and
mm,
uh, it was just the right time, really. It was just unfortunate that the situation that happened at the end of the season with Alan Buckley had my contract again
yeah,
because it was the period in my life where I was looking to settle down a bit and buy a house, and
mm,
so I asked for a 2-year contract, I didn't ask for more money. I just asked to extend the contract, so I had a bit more stability in my life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's one
travel
problem again
about and
that fans don't see about the lives of footballers, do they? That kind of nomadic lifestyle and having to try and live on 1 to 2 year contracts and things like that.
yeah, and to be honest, for 3 months in Grimsby, I stayed with the Oglesbys, John and Di Oglesbys at their house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they put me up. And Justin and Damien, they were they were their kids who were put out a little bit because they were putting me up. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I mean that people don't see that. And
Yeah.
after that, I ended up renting properties all over Grimsby and Cleethorpes. And do you know what I mean? It was a time where I needed to get on the property ladder really, and
Yeah.
I had a long-term girlfriend, and we wanted a settled place because she was travelling back and forth from Warrington at the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it wasn't a place where she wanted to come when I was staying at 3 and 4 other footballers. You know what I mean? So
no, exactly, and that's understandable. But despite all that in the
yeah.
background, that the effort and the, the, how well the fans thought of you as a result of your efforts for the club was always plain to see for me.
Yeah, and to be honest, I look back with fondness now on the fans. You know what I mean at Grimsby. I mean, every time I used to come onto the pitch, they used to chant my name, even though it wasn't my name. It was Eddie.
Which is what I want to ask you about. That was that something you came with, or did that get labelled at the club?
that was something I was set up with that by the lads. It was one day I used to come into the time, and it was during the period of Eddie the Eagle, doing his stunts and things. And I used to put things on and put these goggles on and get a few mops and mess about in the change room as though I was Eddie the Eagle.
Yeah.
And the lads, it was just a bit of a banter and laugh, really. And then one day,
I think I know what's coming.
Yeah, and they said, "Steve, do you fancy doing that Eddie the Eagle stunt and having a few photos?" And I was thinking, and they said, "Well, I'll throw a tenner in for charity. It's only for, this program that they're doing. Do you know what I mean?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Yeah, go on then. I don't mind. Yeah, I'll do that. Go on. As long as you all put a tenner in." Anyway, they took the photo, and it was only in the afternoon when we was down in the town. And I was with Mark Lever, John McDermott, I think it was Andy Dixon, and possibly a couple of other lads, Aggie maybe. And then Macca said, "Well, we need to get the paper. There's stuff in the paper tonight about the game, Saturday and this and that." And then all of a sudden, as we're walking down to get the paper, someone's like, "Eddie!" like this. And and Macca starts laughing, and Mark Lever, and then the next minute, someone else is shouting, "Eddie!" Like, and I'm thinking, something going on here, is that what I mean?
And there was.
And it was only when I got the paper and the lads were laughing their heads off, and it was a full page on the back, wasn't it? A picture of me.
It was in the build up to a game, wasn't it? I think it might have been one of the cup games.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had it done later. Actually, when it was snowing, another one taken. But after it was the Saturday really when it hit me that, and I came out on the pitch and the whole stand at one end was Eddie.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh no, this is gonna stick now.
And it did, and it's still.
It did, yeah. Actually,
yeah. So we had fun with that, and then so that second season, you were playing along with likes of Steve Sherwood, Andy Tilson, Mark Levy, you've just mentioned, who'd broken through into the team by that point. He's going to come on and talk to us as well, Mark. I'm in touch with Mark, and he's coming on. And one of my all-time favourite players, Sean Cunnington, was there. So what was Sean like to play with?
Yeah. Sean was a great player. He just had that composure about his game, do you know what I mean? And he had that little bit of nastiness as well.
Oh yeah, he didn't shy out of a tackle, did he? Let's say.
A challenge. he was never going to back out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A great player to play with. I mean,
Yeah.
he could pass the ball and find players as well.
Yeah, and for a striker like yourself, he gets you moving forward, doesn't he? And that was one of the things he did well for us. He'd get us from the back to the front quite quickly at times, but not over the top. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's one or two. Sorry, go on.
Go on. Yeah.
I was going to say there's one or two who you play with no longer with us as well. I see Neil Robinson, Mark North. We've sadly lost. So that's quite sad. They were guys you played with, and Big Keith as well, Big Keith Alexander. Really sad to see them no longer with us.
All great lads as well. I was sad to hear every time, you know, you hear on the grapevine really as a footballer, because you're not at the club anymore, and then sometimes it's too late to actually go to funerals and things.
Yeah.
And it is regrettable, really, that I've missed having the chance to say goodbyes to him. Do you know what I mean?
And again, it's not like a normal workplace, is it? Yeah. Sorry.
No, yeah. I mean, in their own right, they're all great players, really, as well. Do you know what I mean? So, I always look back in fondness on all of them.
Yeah, and there's
Northie was a character as well.
Yeah, and he went young, didn't he? Northie, unfortunately, he was really taken too soon.
Yeah, and to be honest, he lived his life to the full, though, Northie. Do you know what I mean? But even as a player, when I shared a house with him, do you know what I mean? I used to say to him, Northie, you need to calm down.
Yeah.
But he was just 100% everything he did. You know what I mean? Whatever he did, it was 100%. There was no sort of going slow or calming down or you know what I mean? Yeah, great lad.
Yeah, and he gave us some great memories as well with the winners at Middlesbrough, the 2 goals right at the end there.
Oh,
what a fantastic end to a game that was!
Wow. Again, it's a game. You don't really remember a lot of the games themselves, but the points of the games that count, really, and the goals, obviously, Northie.
Because we were 1-0 down, weren't we? We were like 4th division against the first division at the time, and 1-0 down with 5-10 minutes to go and 15 minutes to go.
I think he was on the bench once, you know.
Yeah, and he came on.
Bench, was he?
Yeah.
He came on. That's right.
Yeah.
I can't remember why he was on the bench actually.
He must have been injured because he had pelvic problems, didn't he? And
that's right. Yeah,
groin. And he struggled with his groin, and I think he'd probably been injured then, and that's why he came back. But you players don't know what us fans go through either. I nearly got trampled to death when that winner went in. I was lucky to have a burly 6'5" bloke next to me who picked me up by the scruff of my neck and rescued me. So we did suffer for our Saturday afternoons out. So thanks to you guys, we were well entertained.
Yeah, I mean, you get few moments like that in your career that, well, you look back on and you just think, wow. I have a few of my own moments in my own career, but I would imagine for Northie that was one of his special moments. You know what I mean?
And we pick back up with Steve next week when he talks about the more successful second season with Town and a great cup run. Join us next week for the second part of Steve Saunders' interview at 3 Fish on the Shirt.